The first crack appeared during what should have been a perfect family dinner. I'd spent hours in the kitchen perfecting my mother's lasagna recipe, determined to prove I belonged at this table. The scent of fresh herbs and bubbling cheese filled our dining room, but Jessica's smirk told me everything before she even opened her mouth. "This is interesting," she said, pushing the pasta around her plate. "Not quite what I'm used to in Italy, but I suppose it's a valiant attempt, Addison. I'm Addison, and 3 years ago, I gave up my career in marketing to become the perfect wife to Noah. Sometimes I wonder if that was my first mistake." Noah cleared his throat, reaching for his wine glass. "Maybe we could order from that new Italian place next time, honey. The one Jessica recommended?" The knife in my hand trembled slightly. I set it down before anyone could notice. "I followed the recipe exactly. Oh, don't take it personally." Jessica leaned back, wine glass dangling between her manicured fingers. "Not everyone can master authentic Italian cuisine. It takes years of experience, living in the culture." She trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy in the air. I watched Noah nodding along with his sister's words, like he always did. The same man who once praised my cooking now couldn't meet my eyes across our mahogany dining table. "Walter, how's your portion?" I turned to my father-in-law, desperate for an ally. He opened his mouth to respond, but Jessica cut him off. "Daddy's watching his sodium, remember? This is probably too rich for him." She reached over, actually pulling his plate away. "I'll make him my special heart-healthy pasta tomorrow." I didn't realize. I started, but Noah interrupted. "Jesus, Addison, you know about Dad's condition. How could you be so careless?" The room went silent except for the soft clink of Jessica's fork against her barely touched plate. Evelyn, my mother-in-law, stared intently at her water glass, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though the words tasted like ash. "I'll do better next time. It's just that—" Jessica sighed dramatically. "Sometimes I wonder if you're really cut out for this family life thing. I mean, you were so career-focused before. Must be quite the burden trying to be something you're not." The word burden hung in the air like poison gas. Noah didn't defend me. He never did anymore, not when it came to Jessica. I stood up, gathering plates with shaking hands. "Who's ready for dessert?" "I made tiramisu." "Oh, God, no." Jessica laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "I couldn't possibly." "Noah, remember that little cafe in Florence? That's real tiramisu." I fled to the kitchen, bracing myself against the counter. Through the doorway, I could hear them continuing without me. "She's trying, Jess." Evelyn's soft voice carried. "Trying isn't enough when it comes to family," Jessica replied. "Noah deserves better than someone who can't even handle basic domestic duties." "She's right, Mom." Noah's words sliced through me like a blade. Sometimes I wonder if Addison really understands what it means to be part of this family. Standing there, surrounded by dirty dishes and the remnants of my failed dinner, something inside me shifted. 3 years of trying to fit into their mold, of shrinking myself to make room for Jessica's oversized presence, of watching Noah choose his sister over his wife again and again. I opened the trash can and slowly, deliberately, dropped the entire tiramisu inside. The perfect layers of coffee-soaked ladyfingers and mascarpone cream collapsed into a mess of brown and white. In that moment, watching my dessert disintegrate, I made a decision. They wanted to talk about burdens? I'd show them exactly what kind of burden I could be. I wiped my hands, straightened my spine, and plastered on a smile before returning to the dining room. "Who's ready for coffee?" 3 days after the dinner disaster, I found myself trapped in my own living room, watching Jessica reorganize my bookshelf while Noah beamed at her like she was performing miracles. "These really should be arranged by color, not author," she said, pulling down the books I'd carefully organized. "It's all about aesthetic these days. Social media worthy, you know?" I dug my nails into my palm. Those were already organized. "Oh, sweetie." Jessica's laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a storm. "Trust me, this will look so much better. Noah, remember how I styled that boutique in Milan?" "You've always had an eye for these things, Jess." Noah lounged on our sofa, completely unconcerned that his sister was dismantling our home piece by piece. The doorbell rang, saving me from watching any more of my life being rearranged. I opened the door to find Evelyn holding a casserole dish. "I thought you might like a break from cooking," she whispered, following me to the kitchen. Her eyes darted toward the living room where Jessica's voice carried on about feng shui. "That's thoughtful of you," I said, accepting the dish, "but unnecessary. I'm perfectly capable of—" "I know you are, dear." Evelyn touched my arm. I just— She glanced over her shoulder. "Walter's worried about the stress you're under." "I'm fine." The lie came automatically now. A crash from the living room made us both jump. Jessica's "oops" followed immediately after. I rushed in to find my grandmother's crystal vase in pieces on the hardwood floor. Jessica stood over it, hand over her mouth in mock horror. "It just slipped," she said. "But honestly, it was rather dated. I know this amazing artist in Venice who could make you something much more modern." "That was my grandmother's." My voice came out flat, empty. Noah finally stood up. "It was an accident, Addison. No need to make Jessica feel worse about it." "Worse about it?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "She doesn't feel bad at all." Jessica's face crumpled into practiced tears. "How could you say that? I'm trying so hard to help you improve things around here, and you're just so resistant to change." "There it is," Noah snapped, wrapping an arm around his sister. "You've made her cry. Again." Evelyn stepped forward. "Noah, perhaps—" "No, Mom. Addison needs to understand that Jessica is family. She's trying to help, and all Addison does is criticize and complain." I stared at the shattered crystal, catching my distorted reflection in one of the larger pieces. "You're right, Noah. Jessica is family, and I'm just— What exactly?" "Don't be dramatic," he said. "You're my wife, but Jessica needs us right now. She's adjusting to being back home, and what about what I need?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Jessica wiped her eyes, smearing expensive mascara. "See? This is exactly what I meant at dinner. She's so self-centered, Noah, always making everything about her." "I think," Evelyn said carefully, "we all need to take a breath," but Noah was already shaking his head. "No, Jess is right. Ever since she came back, you've been hostile and unreasonable, Addison. She's trying to help you become a better wife, a better part of this family." I knelt down and began picking up pieces of crystal, each sharp edge a reminder of another boundary crossed, another piece of me chipped away. "Leave it," Jessica commanded. "You'll cut yourself, and Noah doesn't need to deal with another one of your emergencies." I looked up at her, really looked at her, and saw something I'd missed before. Behind the tears and trembling lip, her eyes were cold, calculating. She wasn't just being thoughtless or entitled. This was deliberate. "You're right," I said, standing slowly. "I wouldn't want to cause any more problems." "Finally," Jessica sighed. "She's being sensible." I turned and walked to the kitchen, Evelyn following close behind. As I reached for the broom, she touched my shoulder. "Addison," she whispered. "Walter and we see what's happening here." I met her eyes in the reflection of the kitchen window, saw the worry there, the understanding. But before she could say more, Jessica called out, "Noah, we should really talk about redecorating this whole place. It's so— What's the word I'm looking for?" "Suburban?" Noah offered. "Basic," Jessica declared. "Just like—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We all knew who she meant. I gripped the broom handle tighter, watching my knuckles turn white. In the kitchen window's reflection, I saw something else change in my eyes. Something that looked a lot like purpose. The notification from our joint bank account popped up while I was paying bills. A transfer of $50,000 to an account I didn't recognize. My fingers trembled as I logged into our online banking, scrolling through months of similar transactions. I was still staring at the screen when Noah came home, Jessica trailing behind him like a designer shadow. "You're both home early," I said, keeping my voice steady. Jessica found the perfect vacation rental in Tuscany, Noah announced, grinning. We need to book it now before someone else grabs it. We? The word tasted bitter. For the family trip next month. Jessica chimed in, perching on our leather armchair. You'll love it, Addison. If you can appreciate real Italian culture, that is. I turned my laptop around. Is that what these transfers are for? Real Italian culture? The color drained from Noah's face. Jessica's smile flickered but held. You've been monitoring my transactions? Noah's voice hardened. Invading my privacy? Our privacy, I corrected. Our money. The money we saved for our future, for starting a family. Jessica laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. Oh, honey, Noah knows where his priorities lie. And where exactly is that? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood. Because from these statements, it looks like his priority is funding your shopping sprees and luxury apartments. Addison, Noah warned, stepping between us. You're overreacting. Jessica needed help getting established after moving back. $300,000 worth of help? The room went silent. Even Jessica's perpetual smirk faltered. What? I pressed on. Didn't think I'd do the math? Add up all those transfers? It's my money too, Noah said, but his voice wavered. It was our future. My laugh came out hollow. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore. Jessica stood, smoothing her silk blouse. Noah's just being a good brother. Something you clearly don't understand. Being an only child. A good brother? I pulled up another transaction. Is that what you call paying off her credit cards? Or this lease on a luxury condo when she claims she's staying with your parents? Noah's head snapped toward his sister. You said the condo was temporary. It is. Jessica cut in quickly. Just until I find something more suitable. You know how Daddy's snoring affects my sleep. Walter doesn't snore, I said quietly. He uses a CPAP machine, the one you said was too noisy when you stayed there last week. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's mask cracked just for a moment, showing something ugly underneath. You think you're so clever, she hissed. Digging through statements, playing detective. But you're nothing. Just a sad little housewife who gave up her career because she couldn't handle both. Jessica, Noah protested weakly, but she was on a roll. You want to know the truth? I never left Italy. I've been living there this whole time in the condo Noah bought me. Coming back was just too perfect an opportunity to miss. An opportunity for what? Her smile turned cruel. To show Noah what a mistake he made marrying you. I looked at my husband, waiting for him to defend me, to be as shocked as I was. Instead, he wouldn't meet my eyes. You knew? My voice cracked. All this time? It's complicated, he mumbled. It's really not, Jessica said. Noah knows family comes first. Real family. Not some trophy wife he picked up at a corporate mixer. I closed the laptop slowly, deliberately. You're right about one thing, Jessica. Family does come first. I walked to our bedroom, Noah calling after me. When I returned, I was holding the manila envelope Evelyn had given me last week. Walter's latest medical bills, I said, dropping them on the coffee table. The ones you've been ignoring while funding Jessica's Italian lifestyle. Noah's face went ash gray. What? Your father needs surgery, Noah, but sure, let's book that villa in Tuscany instead. Jessica reached for the envelope, but I snatched it back. Don't bother. I already paid them, with my personal savings. The money I've been squirreling away from my part-time bookkeeping job. The one you both mock me for because it's beneath me. Addison, Noah started. Save it. I headed for the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought I was the problem, but now I see exactly what I'm dealing with. Where are you going? Noah called out. To see your parents. Someone should tell them the truth about their perfect children. I left them standing there, Jessica's mask finally cracking and Noah's world starting to crumble. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was a start. Evelyn's hand shook as she set down her teacup. We sat in their sunroom, Walter's CPAP machine humming softly from the bedroom down the hall. I should have told you sooner, she whispered. About the money. My stomach clenched. What money? She pulled out a stack of papers from beneath the cushion, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Bank statements, investment reports, all bearing Walter's name. And Noah's. Walter gave Noah power of attorney last year when the health issues started. Her voice cracked. I thought he would take care of things. I scanned the documents, bile rising in my throat. The numbers told a story worse than I'd imagined. Not thousands missing, millions. They're trust funds, Evelyn continued. Both of them. Gone. And now the medical bills. The front door opened and Jessica's voice carried through the house. Daddy? Noah said you wanted to see us? Evelyn's eyes widened in panic. I squeezed her hand, sliding the papers into my bag. Let me handle this. Noah and Jessica swept in, all false concern and practiced smiles, but they faltered when they saw me. What are you doing here? Jessica demanded. Paying bills, I said quietly. Someone has to. Noah's jaw tightened. We discussed this. The family finances are my responsibility. Is that what you call emptying your parents' accounts? Jessica laughed, but it sounded hollow. What nonsense are you spreading now? Tell them, Evelyn. I turned to my mother-in-law, but she stared at her hands, silent. Mom? Noah stepped forward. What's she talking about? The trust funds, I answered for her. Both of them. Drained to fund Jessica's Italian fantasy and whatever else you've been hiding. That's ridiculous, Jessica snapped. Daddy would never. Walter doesn't know. Evelyn's voice was barely audible. Noah handled everything after the stroke scare. The room went still. Jessica's perfect mask cracked, real fear seeping through. Noah? She turned to her brother. Tell them it's not true. But Noah wasn't looking at any of us. His eyes were fixed on the hallway, where Walter stood leaning heavily on his cane. The money's gone? Walter's voice was rough. All of it? Daddy, I can explain. Jessica started. Can you explain the second mortgage, too? I cut in. The one Noah took out on their house to cover your shopping sprees? Walter swayed, and Evelyn rushed to steady him. The house? He whispered. Noah finally spoke, his voice desperate. I was going to fix it. Make investments, replace everything before anyone noticed. With what money? I asked. The $300,000 you took from our accounts? Jessica whirled on her brother. You said that was your money, that you had savings. I lied, Noah shouted. The room fell silent again. I lied to everyone. And now they're about to lose their home. I finished. Unless someone steps in. Walter sank into a chair, looking suddenly old. How much? He asked. How much do we need? I pulled out my phone, showing them the numbers I'd compiled. Jessica gasped. Noah went pale. I can help, I said quietly. My savings, my part-time work. It won't cover everything, but it's a start. Why would you help us? Jessica's voice had lost its edge, replaced by something like fear. I met Walter's eyes. Because someone in this family should. No. Walter straightened in his chair. No more secrets, no more schemes. He looked at his children, really looked at them. You did this. You'll fix it. Daddy, Jessica began. Sell the condo. He cut her off. And whatever else you bought with our money, both of you. Noah stepped forward. Dad, please, get out. Walter's voice shook. Both of you, until you figure out how to make this right. I watched them leave, Jessica's designer heels clicking on hardwood, Noah's shoulders slumped in defeat. The sound of their car fading away left a heavy silence. What do we do now? Evelyn whispered. I pulled out more papers from my bag. Research, legal options, financial plans. We fight back. We save your house, and then. And then? Walter asked. I thought of Noah's betrayal, of Jessica's smirks, of all the nights I'd spent doubting myself. And then we make sure they never hurt this family again. The CPAP machine hummed in the background, steady as a heartbeat, as we began to plan. The email from my old boss arrived at 3 in the morning when I was still awake, scrolling through financial records. Position available immediately. Interested? My hands trembled as I typed yes and hit send. Dawn found me in our home office, methodically photographing documents. Noah's passwords were embarrassingly predictable. Jessica's birthday, their childhood address. Each new file revealed another layer of deception. Offshore accounts, falsified documents, a web of lies that stretched back years. The front door clicked open. I quickly closed the laptop, but kept the USB drive clutched in my palm. Working early? Noah's voice was careful, controlled. He hadn't slept at home last night. Someone has to. I turned to face him. How's Jessica? Devastated. He loosened his tie. She had to cancel her flight back to Italy. Because the credit cards are frozen? His jaw tightened. You didn't have to involve my parents. You didn't have to steal from them. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Noah ran his hands through his disheveled hair. I can fix this, he said. I just need time. Time for what? To drain what's left of their retirement? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood, sliding the drive into my pocket. Jessica has always been your priority. I just never realized how far you'd go for her. His phone buzzed. Jessica's face lit up the screen. Of course. Take it, I said. She needs you more than I do. He answered, turning away. Jess? No, don't cry. I'll figure something out. I left him there, heading to the kitchen where I'd hidden the next piece of evidence. Behind the coffee filters sat a stack of letters, correspondence between Jessica and her friends in Italy, detailing exactly how she'd been spending the stolen money. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Evelyn clutching her purse like a lifeline. Walter's in the hospital, she said as soon as I opened the door. His heart. Noah appeared behind me. What happened? The stress. Evelyn's voice cracked. He found more documents this morning, credit cards in his name. Noah's phone buzzed again. Jessica's ringtone. Go ahead, I said quietly. Answer it. That's what you always do. He looked between the phone and his mother, paralyzed by indecision for the first time I could remember. Noah, Evelyn pleaded. Your father. I have to take this, he whispered, stepping away. Jess needs me. I watched something break in Evelyn's eyes. The same something that had broken in mine months ago. I got a job offer, I told her softly. My old position. They want me back. Understanding dawned on her face. When? Immediately. I glanced at Noah, still murmuring reassurances to Jessica. I've been gathering evidence. Everything they've done, every account, every lie. Good. The steel in her voice surprised me. Walter and we've made decisions too. From her purse, she pulled out power of attorney papers, new ones, dated yesterday. We're transferring everything to you, she said. The house, the accounts, all of it. You're the only one we trust. Noah ended his call just as Evelyn handed me the papers. His face went pale. What is that? Protection, Evelyn answered. From both of you. His phone started ringing again. This time, he let it go to voicemail. Mom, you can't. It's done. She straightened her spine. Now, are you coming to see your father, or does Jessica need you more? Noah's phone kept buzzing. Text messages now. His fingers twitched toward it instinctively. I'll drive you to the hospital, I told Evelyn, picking up my keys. Addison, wait. Noah reached for my arm. I stepped back, the USB drive heavy in my pocket, the power of attorney papers burning in my hand. You know what's funny? I said. I actually thought I could compete with Jessica, but you can't compete with an obsession. It's not. Save it. I opened the door for Evelyn. Your sister's calling. Better not keep her waiting. As we left, I heard his phone ring again, and again, and again. The sound followed us down the driveway, each ring another nail in the coffin of our marriage. In the car, Evelyn touched my hand. What happens next? I started the engine, thinking of the evidence safely backed up in 3 different places, of my new job, of all the carefully laid plans. Now, I said, we make them face the consequences. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I approached Walter's room. Noah and Jessica's voices carried through the open door, their practiced concern making my skin crawl. Daddy, please, Jessica was saying. We can explain everything. I paused outside, clutching the manila envelope containing all their secrets. Your mother signed everything over to her? Noah's voice cracked. How could you? Because she was the only one who told us the truth. Walter's response was weak but clear. I stepped into the doorway. Jessica saw me first, her perfect mask slipping for just a moment. You. She stood, designer heels clicking on linoleum. Haven't you done enough damage? Show them. Walter whispered from his bed. Show them what you found. My hands didn't shake as I opened the envelope. Bank statements, wire transfers, forged signatures. I laid each document on Walter's tray table. And this, Jessica's real estate holdings in Italy, 4 properties, all purchased with your parents' money. Noah stepped between us. Stop this. He's not well. 3 shell companies, I continued, all registered to you, Noah, used to funnel money from your parents' accounts into Jessica's lifestyle. You're twisting everything. Jessica's voice rose hysterically. Noah was helping me invest. In what? I pulled out my phone, showing them the photos. These designer clothes? The yacht rentals? The parties? Enough. Walter's heart monitor beeped faster. Noah, is this true? Before he could answer, Jessica lunged for my phone. Delete those. You had no right. The phone clattered to the floor. As Jessica grabbed for it, a text message flashed across the screen. From her Italian boyfriend, Marco. Noah went still. Marco? The one who died last year? Jessica froze, color draining from her face. He didn't die, I said quietly. That was just another lie to get more money from Noah. For your grief therapy in Italy. Jessica? Noah's voice was small, childlike. Tell me that's not true. She straightened, smoothing her silk blouse. You don't understand. Any of you. I deserve what? I cut in. Their retirement? Their house? Your brother's marriage? Everything, she screamed. I deserve everything. The heart monitor's beeping accelerated. Walter's face contorted in pain. Get out, he gasped. Both of you. Daddy, Jessica started. Out! A nurse rushed in, pushing past us. More followed. Someone called a code. What did you do? Noah grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. Are you happy now? Is this the revenge you wanted? I yanked away. This isn't revenge. This is consequences. Mr. Harrison? A doctor appeared. Your father's asking for Mrs. Harrison. Only Mrs. Harrison. Jessica's face twisted. She's not even family, but I was already moving past them, into the room where Walter lay surrounded by medical equipment. Evelyn held his hand, tears streaming down her face. The papers. He wheezed. In my briefcase. Evelyn pulled out another envelope. Inside were documents I hadn't seen before. Evidence of even more theft, more lies, stretching back decades. We knew, Walter said, about Jessica, about everything. We just couldn't face it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I never meant. No. His grip on my hand tightened. You did what we couldn't. Protected this family from our own children. The monitor's beeping steadied. The immediate crisis passed, but the weight of everything settled over us like a shroud. Outside, I could hear Jessica sobbing, Noah trying to comfort her even now. The sound of their voices, once so powerful, now seemed pathetic. What happens next? Evelyn asked. I looked at the evidence in my hands, thinking of all the ways this could play out. Criminal charges, public scandal, family destruction. That depends on them, I said, and whether they're finally ready to face the truth. Walter's eyes closed. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let people fall. I stepped out of the room, past Noah and Jessica huddled together, past the nurses and doctors, past everything I thought I wanted when this started. In the hospital parking lot, I sat in my car and stared at the final document I hadn't shown anyone yet. Divorce papers, already filled out, waiting for signatures. My phone buzzed. A message from Noah. Please, we need to talk. I started the engine without responding. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. Some bridges needed to burn. The retirement community brochure lay on Walter's hospital bed like a white flag of surrender. Evelyn's hands trembled as she showed him the photos of their potential new home. It's lovely, she said softly, and safe. Noah burst through the door, Jessica close behind. You can't be serious. It's done. Walter's voice was stronger today. The house is being sold. Jessica's perfect mask cracked. Sold? To who? To pay your debts, I answered from my corner of the room. All of them. You. Jessica advanced on me. This is your doing. No. Evelyn stood. This is our choice, our last gift to you both. Noah shook his head. Gift? You're abandoning us. Like you abandoned them? I pulled out my phone, showing the latest bank statement. Another withdrawal yesterday, Noah? What was it this time? Stop. Jessica grabbed for the phone, but I held firm. Emergency funds, Noah muttered. Jessica needed nothing. Walter cut in. She needed nothing. You enabled everything. Jessica's laugh turned hysterical. Enabled? He protected me. Unlike you, Daddy. Unlike Mother. When have you ever... We protected you too much. Evelyn's quiet words silenced the room. And now we're done. I moved toward the door, my part in this nearly finished. But Jessica blocked my path. You think you've won? Her designer heels brought her eye level with me. That you can just destroy our family and walk away? Your family destroyed itself. I tried to step past her. She grabbed my arm. He'll never choose you. No matter what you do, Noah will always... Choose you? I finished. I know. That's why I'm not giving him the choice anymore. Noah stepped forward. What does that mean? I pulled the divorce papers from my bag. It means I choose me. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's grip on my arm loosened. You can't, Noah whispered. I already have. I set the papers on Walter's tray table. Sign them, Noah. Give us both what we want. What we want? His voice cracked. I want my wife back. I want my family. No, I cut him off. You want your enabler back, your silent partner in Jessica's destruction. Destruction? Jessica's voice rose. I'm successful. I'm broke. Walter's word fell like a hammer. The Italian properties are being seized. The accounts are frozen. Everything stops today. Jessica swayed on her designer heels. But where will I go? That's not my problem anymore. I turned to Noah. Or yours, if you're smart. Noah looked between his sister and me, the same choice he'd made 1,000 times before. But this time, something was different. This time, he saw the cost. Jess, he said quietly, what really happened with Marco? She flinched. Noah, please. The truth. For once, Jessica's perfect facade crumbled. There was no Marco. There was never. I just needed money, Noah finished. Always more money. Sign the papers, Noah. I moved toward the door again. Let everyone move on. Don't you dare. Jessica lunged for the papers, but Evelyn was faster, snatching them away. Enough! Walter's voice boomed. Jessica, sit down. Noah, sign the papers. It's over. Noah picked up the pen, his hand shaking. If I sign, what happens to Jessica? That's not Addison's responsibility, Evelyn said. Or yours anymore. Jessica sank into a chair, her designer outfit suddenly looking like a costume. Noah, please. He looked at me one last time. I did love you. No, I said quietly. You loved the idea of me, the perfect wife who would help you protect Jessica. I was never real to you. His signature was barely legible through his tears. Jessica's sobs filled the room. I took the papers and walked out, leaving behind the sound of Jessica's crying, Noah's murmured comfort, and Walter and Evelyn's quiet strength. In the hallway, my phone buzzed with a message from my new employer. Office ready for Monday. I deleted the message without responding. Some endings needed no acknowledgement. Some victories were better savored in silence. Behind me, I heard Jessica's final wail of protest, Noah's attempts at comfort, and knew I'd never have to hear those sounds again. The retirement community's garden bloomed with late summer flowers as I walked with Evelyn between the raised beds. Walter sat nearby, his color better, watching a monarch butterfly dance across the petunias. Noah called again, Evelyn said quietly. I nodded, kneeling to pull a weed. And Jessica? In therapy, finally. Real therapy this time. She touched a rose petal. The court-mandated kind. The butterfly landed on Walter's wheelchair. He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen since the hospital. Your office sent over more documents, he said, about the restitution payments. They can wait. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees. Today's about the garden. My phone buzzed. Another email from Noah's lawyer. I deleted it without reading. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. Did you see the news? Evelyn asked. About Jessica's properties in Italy? All seized. I helped Walter adjust his sunshade. The authorities were quite thorough. She's living in a studio apartment now, Walter said, working as a barista. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Jessica, who once sneered at my cooking, now making lattes for strangers. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Noah. I understand now. Before I could delete it, another followed. I watched our wedding video last night. The way I looked at Jessica instead of you during our vows. I'm sorry I never saw it before. I handed the phone to Evelyn. She read the messages, her eyes softening. He's learning, she said. Too late. I turned back to the garden. Some lessons cost too much. Walter cleared his throat. Speaking of costs, he pulled an envelope from his jacket. The final accounting. Inside was a check, my share from selling their house. More money than I'd expected, enough to start over completely. We want you to have it, Evelyn said. For everything you did, everything you lost. I started to protest, but Walter raised his hand. You protected this family when we couldn't. Let us protect you now. A commotion at the garden entrance drew our attention. Jessica stood there, wearing plain clothes instead of designer labels, her perfect mask finally stripped away. I'll go, I said, but Walter caught my hand. No, let her come. Jessica approached slowly, uncertainty in every step. No sign of Noah behind her. Mother, she said. Daddy, She glanced at me, then quickly away. My therapist suggested. Sit, Walter said firmly. She sank onto a bench, hands twisting in her lap. I've been thinking about that first dinner, when I came back. The lasagna. Jessica, Evelyn started. It was good, Jessica whispered. The lasagna, I couldn't let it be good. Couldn't let anything about her be good. The butterfly left Walter's chair, landing briefly on Jessica's shoulder before flying away. I should go, I said, gathering my things. This moment wasn't meant for me. Addison. Jessica's voice stopped me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Good. I turned back. Because I'm not offering it. She nodded, something like respect flickering across her face. I know. I just needed you to know I understand now. What I destroyed. I looked at Walter and Evelyn, at their peaceful garden, at the life they'd built after the storm. You didn't destroy anything, I said finally. You just showed everyone what was already broken. My phone buzzed one last time. Noah again. I miss who I could have been with you. I deleted the message, then blocked his number. Some chapters needed to stay closed. The garden looks beautiful, I told Evelyn and Walter. I'll visit next week. As I walked away, I heard Jessica begin to cry. Not her old theatrical sobs, but the quiet tears of someone finally facing themselves. In my car, I found one last envelope on the passenger seat. Inside was a photo from that first dinner, before everything unraveled. I started to tear it up, then stopped. Some reminders were worth keeping. Not for the pain they caused, but for the strength they revealed. I started the engine, leaving behind the garden, the tears, the past. Ahead lay my own path, no longer shadowed by someone else's needs. The butterfly appeared again, dancing past my windshield toward the open sky.